Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. If there seems to be one consistent thing within the games industry, it is that AAA corporations are inherently anti-consumer in nature. Another constant within the universe is that Ubisoft executives don't know when to stop saying the quiet part out loud. So today I thought we could take a look at Ubisoft's thoughts on the subscription model for video games. And by subscription, I mean Microsoft Game Pass, Electronic Arts EA Play, PlayStation Plus, and Ubisoft Plus Premium, to name but a few. Real quick, before we dive in, as I said in my last Baldur's Gate 3 video, I will be guest starring on a Dungeons & Dragons live stream, and it will be starting this Tuesday, January 23rd at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 8:30 Eastern on Rachel Messer's channel. So if you want to come have some fun, or more likely make fun of me and my stupid face, I hope you consider watching, and I'll post a link to her channel in the pinned comment down below. Now, on January 15th, GamesIndustry.biz released an article where in that they discussed Ubisoft's newly rebranded subscription offering with Ubisoft's Philippe Tremblay, the director of subscriptions. Now, in that, Tremblay had the following to say. One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They got comfortable not owning their CD collection or DVD collection. That's a transformation that's been a bit slower to happen in games. As gamers grow comfortable in that aspect, you don't lose your progress. If you resume your game at another time, your progress file is still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the game or your engagement with the game. So it's about feeling comfortable with not owning your game. Tremblay continues to say, I still have 2 boxes of DVDs. I definitely understand the gamer's perspective with that, but as people embrace that model, they will see that these games will exist, the service will continue, and you'll be able to access them when you feel like. That's reassuring. But is it though? Especially when that statement is coming from a Ubisoft executive, the same Ubisoft that just 1 month ago announced the delisting of The Crew. The Crew is a 9-year-old video game that has an always online component, and Ubisoft will be shutting down the servers for that game on March 31st of this year. Now, The Crew is an open-world multiplayer racing game set within the United States, and that always online aspect of the game has been a source of contention between players and Ubisoft since before the game even launched and continues to this day, owing to the fact that players felt and feel that the always online component was completely unnecessary as the majority of the multiplayer aspects outside of the free drive matchmaking were already peer-to-peer. So here we have Ubisoft attempting to present a position that people will feel comfortable with not owning their games. Now, on the surface, subscription models tend to appear extremely attractive to gamers. Let's take EA Play for example. EA Play offers 2 different levels to their subscription model. The simple EA Play costs $5 per month or a discounted rate of $30 per year if a person pays annually, where the gamer obtains access to new release games that EA chooses to include for up to 10 hours with a carrot dangled in front of the player using the statement days before launch. It also offers in-game rewards and unlimited access to a curated list of games. EA Play Pro costs $15 per month or $100 per year if paid annually, which takes the 10-hour time limit off of the chosen new release titles and an expanded list of games that includes the premium edition versions of those games. Now, with EA Play, the curated list of games selected tends to change with some games moving into and off of the list periodically. With Ubisoft Plus, we see a somewhat different offering. You have the Classics option for $8 per month that gives you access to, as they state, 50 plus games on PC and access to standard editions of those games. With the premium version, an offering that costs $18 per month, you get access to twice as many games, some, not all, of new releases, premium edition versions of those games, monthly rewards, discounts and deals for game and in-game purchases, and the ability to play certain games on Amazon Luna, as well as the ability to play certain games on Xbox as well. Now, I've seen a great many people in the past justify these subscription models with, I was going to buy the games anyways, so I get more value with my money, which is a fair determination that people will need to make on an individual basis, but it does come with the caveat of the player having no control over what games they do or do not have access to, and yes, the fact that they do not own any of those games, so their access can be revoked or removed at any time. But let's think about this in broader terms. Now, I myself have said in the past that subscription models aren't inherently a bad thing, but I said that knowing that the subscription models themselves would not be the primary or dominant method for gamers as a whole. Game developers and publishers gain access to a stable revenue stream, and gamers on a budget could gain access to more games than they otherwise would. On paper and at surface level, it seems to be a win-win scenario that didn't require much critique. Again, as long as subscription service models did not become the dominant force in the industry. But what would happen if, as Philippe Tremblay very clearly wants, as any AAA corporate executive would, subscription services do become the dominant force in the games industry? Well, that should be fairly easy, as this is corporations speaking, so let's take a look at things from a monetary perspective. Games live and die by how well they're received. Currently, a game that is predominantly deemed to be of poor quality, bad gameplay, lackluster story, poor graphics, etc., they tend not to sell well. After all, if you release a bad product, you shouldn't expect massive sales. But if the dominant method of obtaining games is through a subscription model, that worry all but disappears. Whether the game be good or bad, there are still other titles on the subscription service that will keep people paying for that monthly or annual subscription, so ultimately it won't matter. The revenue stream will be largely unaffected. And at first, that wouldn't be much of a problem. Competition between corporations offering subscription models will stave off any overarching degradation of game quality, at least for a time. But as time inexorably marches on, the never-ending corporate mantra of do the least possible for the most profit will inevitably win out. Games will increasingly experience the circling the drain effect of that mentality. Less comprehensive gameplay, less depth with story, just simply lower quality of games overall, while also seeing an inevitable increase of more microtransactions and in-game currencies, battle passes, and the like, in order to make sure money is not being left on the table. Creativity will be the one thing that will never be needed nor wanted within a games industry where subscription is the dominant method of obtaining games. Innovation is an aspect of creativity within the games industry, but corporations have another word for innovation: risk. And we all know how risk-averse the corporate games industry already is today. Ubisoft in particular are infamous for their adherence to formulaic game design. Imagine how risk-averse they would become if game sales, for all intents and purposes, no longer exist and subscription services are king. Swen Vincke of Larian Studios spoke out regarding Tremblay's statement, and his thoughts as a developer match up very closely with my own thoughts as a games critic and consumer advocate. Last night, he said, "Whatever the future of games look like, content will always be king. But it's going to be a lot harder to get good content if subscription becomes the dominant model and a select group gets to decide what goes to market and what not. Direct from developer to player is the way." Getting a board to okay a project fueled by idealism is almost impossible, and idealism needs room to exist, even if it can lead to disaster. Subscription models will always end up being cost-benefit analysis exercises intended to maximize profit. There is nothing wrong with that, but it may not become a monopoly of subscription services. We are already all dependent on a select group of digital distribution platforms, and discoverability is brutal. Should those platforms all switch to subscription, it'll become savage. In such a world, by definition, the preference of the subscription service will determine what games get made. Trust me, you really don't want that. And he is absolutely correct. In a world of subscription services dominating the games industry, true creativity and innovation cannot exist because of there always being an ever-present risk of failure inherent in that. Video games are, or at least they should be, a creative endeavor where idealism, the daring to dream, needs to have room to grow and to thrive. Something that cannot happen in a subscription model-dominated gaming world. And discovery? Distribution is, as he said, already extremely limited to a few select platforms, and on PC it is absolutely dominated within a pseudo-monopoly by Valve and Steam, where discovery is already terribly difficult to achieve. Under a subscription-dominant world, an independent developer would have to make a case to corporate executives to get their games seen, not just convince or sway gamers to try it out. Meaning even indie titles would have to win out against a cost-benefit analysis of corporations. Subscription services can be a good thing for gamers and game developers and publishers in certain scenarios, but a good thing for some can and will transform into a detriment for all if the games industry goes down the path that Philippe Tremblay envisions. And I, for one, fervently hope that that day never comes to pass. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.